It was afternoon on a sleepy summer day. Nothing urgent needed to be done. No real plans had been made. You and your company were simply hanging out around the local beach, free as the breeze. The, the companions you had for your trip across the shore were Derek and your neighbor Cove. Derek was friends with both of the 13-year-olds in the neighborhood, so the three of you would often get together as a group when he was in town. Three pairs of footprints trailed along in the soft white sand behind you. Derek had only been dropped off minutes ago. He'd brought with him those clothes you had to leave at his house after your night swim. You had taken a minute to put them away. But instead of everyone going inside your house or heading to coves, you'd simply started to walk. It was definitely hot out. Southern California tended to get that way, but it wasn't so bad that you had to hide away from the beating rays of the sun. Cove's hands were in his pockets. He spoke out while facing away from you. Instead, he lazily watched the unchanging horizon.
So,
What do you guys want to do? You and Derek took on matching squints. Normally, there'd be endless answers to the question, but the lackadaisical mood made it feel like trying to solve math problems in a dream. You had nothing. Your thoughts were moving as slowly as the tide that inched towards the shore bit by bit. Finally, the resident problem solver offered a possibility with a yawn and a tall stretch of his arms over his head.
well,
Wanna walk to the grocery store? What? Cove twisted his face to the opposite side and stared at Derek. A stuttering laugh expressed his disbelief. Why would we go grocery shopping? With a shrug, Derek scratched his cheek and explained. Well, it's probably different here, but where I live, the closest place to get stuff isn't a convenience store or mall or anything. It's a grocery store. So sometimes me and my bros will take a trip down there and see what we can find. That sounds neat. Derek stuck Derek stuck a thumbs up in front of his chest, open and excited. Cole folded his arms across his body, unsure and closed off.
this is gonna be
It's
great.
really not like normal errands. You can get anything you want. There are lots of things at the store you never even think about when you're there with your parents, and a list of stuff for the house. Cole's formerly heavy drooping lids lifted high, showing his bright blue eyes. He glanced between you and Derek for final confirmation that you were seriously doing this today. Derek had complete confidence in his stance. It could be interesting. The corners of your neighbor's mouth perked up as well.
Sure.
Okay, let's go grocery shopping. Cool. It was another successful bit of improvising on Derek's part. He put his hands on his hips eagerly.
Let's go.
I'm pretty sure I know where your store is, but the two of you should probably lead the way. Leave it to us. Cole puffed his chest out with pride. He was a true local to the town after being there for so many years. And your walk continued, now with an actual destination in mind. You retraced the remnants of your steps in the sand, heading back to the neighborhood. then up the hill and out the residential area. When you turned onto Main Street, the grocery store was already visible in the distance. It also wasn't going anywhere, so you enjoyed the stroll together. You would arrive when you arrived. Derek continued to sell the concept of his plan by recounting stories of him and his brother's past adventures in Groceryland.
But
So we'd gotten super lucky because the discount rack had a whole cherry pie for way off. Me, George, and Nico pulled our pocket change to get it, and then we had an entire pie just like that. We sat outside on a bench near the store and ate it from the pan. It was cut into 6 slices. I only let the kids have 1 piece each. It was already a lot of sugar. I didn't want to make them food sick. I tried to come up with how we were gonna explain half a pie to Mom, but Nico had his own idea. He took a slice he wasn't allowed to eat and instead threw it at George. Cole's mouth gasped open at the audacity. Derek laughed out loud at the memory, and the response it got it the present. He'd been watching way too many cartoons with food bites and pies to the face, I guess. You'd believe that if there was one thing Nicholas loved, it was Derek, and if there was another, it was cars, and if there was a third, it was copying things he'd seen others do. Obviously, George didn't let that slide, and he took the 5th piece of the pie and squished it right into Nicholas's head. His hair was covered in dark cherry goo. It was a mess, but if you can't beat them, join them. I dumped the last of the pie on myself. Why? It stopped them from fighting over it, and they would have ended up feeling bad if they got messy and I didn't. Nicholas doesn't think very far ahead. Oh, what did you do next? We found a water fountain around the back of the grocery store and tried to scrape off as much pie as possible. Then we went home. Mom still figured out what happened, and we all had to take real baths. That was a good time. A fond smile settled on Derek's face. He glanced up to the sky while getting lost in an entirely private moment of reminiscing. Cole was still reflecting on the story with amusement. You giggled at Derek's storytelling. Cole ruffled a hand through his hair, possibly considering how it might have felt to have an entire pie crushed into his locks. He smirked. A pie-throwing fight is way more memorable than I would have guessed. The most unexpected thing that happened to me when out shopping was that time I got a free balloon and accidentally popped it pretty much immediately.
Dude.
Oh, shoot. It was Derek's turn to chuckle in nervous disbelief. His grin shook just imagining it. It's okay. Rest in peace, Dolphin Balloon. You won't be forgotten. The conversation stayed on the topic of store-related outings. Derek had plenty more experiences to share. The chat didn't last much longer. though. Soon you crossed the street and arrived at Sunset Bird's local mom and pop grocery store. You and your two co-shoppers headed right through the automatic doors. A shiver went down your spine when you stepped out of the afternoon heat and into a powerful air-conditioned store. Shiny, orderly aisles stretched out in front of you. Each one was tightly packed with plethora of brightly packaged merchandise. To some people, the rows and rows of items might have been a slog to go through, but seen through Derek's eyes, it was a scavenger hunt with endless opportunities. Though it was Cove who spoke first. Do you need a cart?
Nope.
Probably not. Derek casually waved that off, eyes still fixated ahead on the altar of consumerism ahead. We're here for quality, not quantity. Besides, do we even have enough money to buy a tons of things? Oh, wait. Cove suddenly burrowed his hands into his pockets once again. He tucked them in deep, but didn't find what he'd gone in search of. I don't have my wallet. It's at home. Me neither. I thought we'd just be in the neighborhood all day. Yeah,
I figured.
it's cool, I figured. Derek's lack of reaction couldn't smooth over Cove's obvious response to the situation. His heavy eyebrows pulled down together. We could have stopped by to get it before we left. Nah, this was my idea, so it's my treat. I've got like $8 and some change. That's enough for all of us to spend around a few dollars or put it together for one thing. That's gonna be plenty. Thanks, Derek. No problem. Having limited funds is the best part. You've gotta get creative. Cove's hands finally deserted his pockets, and one came up to rub his forearm instead.
Alright.
Okay, thanks. Let's get something good. Derek took a step forward as he cheered. Alright, here we go. You went down the nearest aisle, swiveling your head to check both aisles of the path as you swung your currently empty of goods arms through the air. The first stop of the market expedition was the discount rack in the back. You didn't have the same luck as Derek and his little brothers. It was the only place in the store that was barren. One shelf had several dented cartons of chicken stock. Stuffed in the bottom of the rack was a bag of plain rolls. The sight was pretty pathetic. Too bad. He shrugged like it was nothing, but his words told a different story. It would have been easy if there was a pie here, or a cake, or one of those pans with a bunch of cinnamon rolls. Wistfully, Cove continued to mumble a list of miscellaneous pastries that you might have potentially been able to get if the fate had aligned. We can still get the stock. It's such a good deal. You got a laugh from both boys. We'll keep it in mind as an option. There's still plenty of possibilities. And if push comes to shove, we could afford a smaller treat, like getting 3 boxes with one slice of cake each. We wouldn't eat more than that anyway. Maybe you would eat just one. You shrugged, amused. Well, let's keep looking. You pushed past the already pilfered treasure chest and continued to chat. You passed cereals, pastas, and sauces, an aisle full of chip bags and soda packs, and more. The dry goods and canned foods now behind you, you arrived at the produce section. The arrangement of goods was much more open than the narrow rows of shelves. The three of you could spread out more in between pallets and baskets of fresh fruits and vegetables. Derek grabbed an avocado to check its ripeness. Cove stared at the watermelons, appreciating the fruit, but his blank face made it obvious he had no idea how to tell if they were good quality or not. Then a recognizable crackling sound spluttered to life. Both the boys with you lifted their heads. Without conversing, the two rushed over to the back wall where the leafy greens were piled up. A light spray of mist burst from the sprinklers, raining down gently on the produce. Cove and Derek stuck their hands into the damp air while snickering. Derek rubbed his hands together to pretend he was washing them. Cove lifted his hands up to be as close to the source of the water as possible. You also had your hand in the veggie mist. You'd made your own dash across the floor to enjoy the tiny dusting of water drops on your fingers. The impromptu public shower ended shortly, and it was back to the center of space for you. Knowing grins were shared around as you regrouped. There was a comfort in realizing someone else had the same silly habit as you. With the distraction over and the main goal unresolved, Cove helplessly glanced around the store. He was totally stumped. There's a lot of things I like, but I don't have to get any of it now. How do we pick? There was a whine in his tone, and he crossed his arms out of frustration. Derek kept it light, same as he would when dealing with his much younger siblings. Dude, you need more imagination. Turn lemons into lemonade.
I've got a plan.
Actually, wait. Yeah, that's what we should do. We can get some lemons and make our own lemonade. The concept struck Cove just as much as Derek. Oh, that would be cool. I think so too. Great. Derek marched with purpose to a box that was heavy with mesh bags of desired yellow citrus. He tapped a finger to his chin, then bounced from one foot to the other. Derek was suddenly a lemon connoisseur who scrutinized the offerings with utmost focus. He selected 2 bags, one in each hand. The bottom of each pack was set against his upturned palms. Derek jiggled the lemons and tried to get a sense of their weight. Finally, the bag on the right was deemed superior, and Derek carefully laid the unwanted bundle back on the sack. Then he lifted the winner high, showing it off to Cove and you. I've got my thing. It's only $3. Your turns. This time, Cove didn't look aimlessly at what was in front of him. He shut his eyes and put all his mind's full power into conjuring up an answer. Soon he stole a quick glance at Derek's lemons through squinted eyes, and then he took his turn. Come on,
Let's go.
let's do it. You made another trip across the length of the store, this time at a much brisker pace. Cove had a target in sight, even if you couldn't see it yet. He blew past all the food aisles, the pet shelves, and the cleaning supplies. He only stopped when you made it to the one random aisle in the store with cheap plastic kids' toys. This is it. His words were eager and certain. There was a childish excitement to Cove that was just fitting for the location. He reached a hand into the wall with yo-yos and bubble blowers. His fingers landed on a baggie of water balloons. Drinking lemonade is gonna make me wanna have fun outside too. We can use this for that. Perfect plan, Cove. Good work. Thanks. For all his previous indecision, the sweetness of victory was all the more worth it for Cove. His selection was even cheaper than Derek's, $2 and a bit of change. All that was left of Derek's money was $3 and your choice of price. Derek patiently cradled his bag of lemons, while Cove watched you expectantly, excited to see what the final piece of the puzzle would be. You reflected on the theme that was forming, your own preferences, and the shareability of different goods. In the end, you opened your mouth and said, I want those little umbrellas to put in the drinks. Excellent, Faye. You got to lead the way out of the toy aisle and back into the thick of the grocery store traffic. You wound around the aisles until you found the right spot. You took another minute to pick out the best little umbrellas, and then you were done. With items in hands, you, Derek, and Cove went through the checkout line. Derek dug out his pocket change and paid for your odd arrangement of items. None of you bothered to get a bag. Derek's was already in one, and you and Cove could easily carry your things on your own. After a successful grocery trip, you returned to the great outdoors to walk back to the neighborhood. This kind of outing reminded you that it wasn't about what you were doing, that what counted was who you were doing with. Outside, you gathered in front of the crosswalk and waited for a chance to get back on the main sidewalk. While standing around, it was unanimously decided that you'd bring your goods to Cove's house and make the lemonade there. Your home had the risk of Elizabeth deciding she wanted a pre-dinner snack. She wouldn't appreciate having a lemonade making operation in the way. There was no worry of that in the Holden condo. Cove's mom and dad were out. And even if they weren't, they were his parents, not his bossy big siblings. They would have even dreamed of throwing the three of you out of the kitchen to use it instead. Derek was thinking along similar lines based on what he said next. Honestly, man, I can't wrap my head around what it's like to not have any siblings hanging around the house at all. I don't mean that you're weird for that, just it's gotta be so different.
Really?
Is it? I have my dad here. My mom is staying right now too.
I
Yeah,
guess.
but that's not the same. Parents take care of the kids, and the kids have a bunch of stuff they needed. Every day has to be about me and my brothers. If we go out to eat, will everyone like the stuff there? Or will George be too picky? Are we all old enough to do whatever the thing is? Or is Nicholas too little? My birthday is the only time I can do everything that I want for the whole time, and I still choose to keep my bros in mind even though my parents don't need me.
It's okay.
I don't mind, but it's crazy imagining a world where I don't have to do that. Huh, I hadn't thought about that. Cove's eyes started back and forth, and he bit the inside of his cheek. I guess having siblings or not changes how someone thinks. I figured people would be who they are no matter what, but maybe I would have needed to be at least a little different if I had to share my parents and life all the time. I wonder who I'd be without Elizabeth. I think you'd still be someone great,
But
but the road was clear, and so Derek got this conversation and his legs moving again. He started preparations by listing off what you'd need to gather when you made it back: sugar, ideally some ice, and really cold water, a pitcher or something like that. Do you have one of those lemon squeezers? We can do it by hand if we've gotta. With every object Derek recited, Cove nodded along plainly, but he was watching something off in the distance. His faraway thoughts made Derek's words reach him less and less until Derek noticed the lack of reaction. He called to Derek at Cove more loudly to catch his attention. Are you okay, dude?
oh,
Oh. Cove blinked as his brain snapped back into place in the center of his head. It's nothing. Oh, what were we talking about? Derek spun his lemon back into a mini tornado by twisting it around tight from the bottom and then releasing it. He snickered.
no worries.
No worries. I was just making plans for making the lemonades. Okay. The rest of the trip passed by comfortably. Derek carried the conversation, and Cove really paid attention from then on. Once you arrived in your neighborhood and reached Cove's front door, the resident of the building opened it up without needing a key. It was already unlocked. Derek gasped upon seeing such a lack of security. Cove, however, was so relaxed and content that he yawned while going inside. That unknowingly cut off Derek's chance to question Cove about his choice not to lock the door. He simply followed his friend inside, and you did as well. Cove leisurely across his living room to drop his bag of water balloons on coffee table later. You left your little umbrellas there alongside it.
I'm on
Alright.
it.
Derek went straight into the kitchen. He had his lemon bag over his shoulder like a gym pack and flipped it over to sit it beside the sink. He slipped his thumbs through the holes of the mesh and tore it. "Where's your colander?" Cove paused, looking incredulously at the wall. Then he turned and projected his confusion across the counter towards the source of it. "My what?" Undeterred, Derek was quick to offer a rephrase. "A stainer. In the lower cabinet, the one on the left." Derek pressed his hands into the marble and leaned forward with a grin. "Thanks,
Thanks.
Cove." "I've never heard a strainer be called as colander in my life." "Really? Wow." Then a spiky-haired chef ducked down and disappeared from your sight, if you could call someone who made lemonade a chef, that is. When he popped back into view, framed by the back wall and the support beams at the front of the kitchen, Derek was holding a silver stainer. He plopped it into the sink, and it sharply clinked against the metal basin. Derek took the bag he'd set nearby and dumped every single lemon into the waiting container. He turned to the faucet so he could clean the cherry fruits. The sound of running water added an extra layer of relaxation to the atmosphere. Cole stopped dawdling and joined the already hard at work Derek in the kitchen. He grabbed a cutting board and a large knife from an upper drawer. It was his house, and he'd wordlessly claimed responsibility for the riskiest part of making the lemonade. Cove also directed you towards the sugar and a few other things. As it turned out, Mr. Holden didn't have an actual lemon squeezer, so you were going to be doing that by hand. He did have a perfectly crystal clear glass pitcher that'd be perfect for the lemonade. The body of it was a completely round ball shape. It had a narrowed edge that pulled it at the top, with one side pinched into a spout. As far as you could tell, it'd never been used.
Hey.
"Have you made lemonade before, Faye, Cove?" Derek casually questioned you. Derek casually questioned both of you while he hefted the so-called colander up and down to shake off some of the water clinging to the freshly washed lemons. "Maybe, I don't remember. I've made really simple lemonade before, just for me. I'd squeeze one lemon into a glass of water and dumped in a spoonful of sugar. It wasn't that great, but it was easy." "Cool." Derek hummed while placing lemons on a clean kitchen towel. He took a fruit from the colander with his left hand, passed it over to his right, and placed that down while grabbing a new one.
It's all
"I've
good.
made it before too. Fresh lemonade is so good. I'm excited for this." "So am I." Your tools were all prepared now, so the team shifted into the actual creation of the traditional summer drink. Cove would cut the lemon into chunks. Derek gave Cove a tip to roll the lemons against the board before slicing them to get the juices going. You and Derek worked hard together to squish the fruits. You squeezed the lemon parts off the pitcher itself with a smaller strainer balanced over the mouth of it to catch the seeds. Piece by piece, you crushed the thick peel into itself to pop the little sacks of juice in the fruit. The tips of your fingers began to wrinkle after a while, but slowly a murky liquid pooled at the bottom of the glass container. When enough fruits were chopped, Cove joined the juicing effort. The three of you huddled around the counter together. You leaned over the one pitcher and strained it to get everything you could out of the little yellow menaces while not accidentally squirting acid into anyone's eyes. The precariousness of the situation aside, Cove continued the conversation with a question of his own. Derek, you've made lemonade, but did you ever do the whole lemonade stand thing where you tried to sell it to random people who passed by? Oh yeah, it was a mess, and I think we only sold like 2 cups. Nicholas kept drinking our supply, and George's effort to stop him spilled even more of it.
Oh
Plus,
man.
the 2 kids fighting over the lemonade jar probably scared people away from the stall. But it's not like I was expecting that would. But it's not like I was expecting that to be some kind of entrepreneurial success. It was for Nicole and George to have fun, and they did mostly. As usual, tales of Derek's endeavors as a big brother got Cove to chuckle. You were also smiling, even though your fingers had started to cramp after so much lemons compacting. I never got to do that. It's not fair. Our neighborhood has almost no one who goes through, and my mom's wouldn't let me go all the way to the main street to set it up.
Man.
But man, all this business talk makes me think about how I only met either of you 'cause my dad partnered with Cove's dad's business. If that hadn't happened, you probably wouldn't have ever learned I existed. You'd still know each other, obviously. Derek squeezed his 12th lemon chunk with a fittingly sour expression on his face. He'd accidentally made himself feel like a third wheel. In the cluster of human juicers, Derek was in the middle, yet he began to face, despite being right next to you. You and Cove looked at one another from over Derek's lowered head. Cove pushed himself to smile through his concern while also giving Derek's arm a little nudge with his elbow. I worry about that kind of thing sometimes too. If my dad hadn't picked the street to move to, I wouldn't have met Faye.
It's okay.
But my dad still would have had his business, so I still would have met you. Sheepishly, Derek pressed his shoulders up around his face. He managed a small smile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's rough for all of us. Where your parents live and what your parents do has to matter so much to everything. Derek bit his lip, unwilling to let himself continue to speak negatively. But, like a turtle coming out of his shell, Derek lifted himself off the counter and rejoined Ewan Cove at his regular eye level. We did meet each other, and we're friends. That's what counts. We could have met another way somehow. That's true. It's a small world. Cole quietly watched over his friend, soothed by his uplifted mood. Then his lips parted as a pleasant thought came to mind. Hey, this is where I was standing when I first met you.
Right?
Oh yeah,